Fox 10 Gulfstream. This is Next Weather.
All right, temperatures are expected to rise at the end of this week and into the weekend, and it's important you're staying hydrated. Here's some tips from Mandy Gaither on some creative ways to make sure your kids are also getting enough water.
Much of our body is made up of water. When it's hot outside, we have to refill it, and children can be especially vulnerable to dehydration.
I always get asked how much water should my child have, but dependent on their activity level, their age, it's going to be different.
Signs of dehydration in children include dizziness, drowsiness, dry mouth, sunken eyes, crying with little or no tears, urinating less often, or having fewer wet diapers. To support a child's hydration, take water everywhere you go, says Strong for Life licensed and registered dietitian Catherine Sherry.
Let them pick out their own water bottle. Let them decorate it with stickers so they take ownership of it.
Sherry says to add fruits, veggies, and herbs to the water to make it full of flavor without adding excessive amounts of sugar.
One thing I love to do is when my berries have seen better days in the fridge, I'll mash them up and put them in ice cube trays. And so I'll use that as ice. And as that ice starts to melt, it makes that water more sweet.
Sherry says to avoid sports drinks unless the child is vigorously active in the heat. She says food and water can replenish electrolytes without extra sugar and limit use of juice and other high sugar beverages.
There was a meta-analysis published that juice does contribute towards obesity in children. So when thinking about offering it, we want to keep it minimal.
All right, so we are definitely looking at ways to stay hydrated because we've got a heat ridge building in. Here's the forecast. I want to show you what's going to happen with this hot pattern. So we'll take it from Friday and head through Saturday and into Sunday. We've got this heat dome thing, and this is an upper level ridge. And so when we get underneath an upper level ridge, that means our temperatures will be above average. And that's what's going to happen as we head into the weekend. We're going to see a heat dome building in, and the heat index not off the charts, but it is going to be significant. We're thinking up around 100 or so with the heat index. And looking at it, if you want to know how we come up with the heat index, how do we come up with that figure? Because it's not the same as the actual air temperature. Well, if you take the prediction for this weekend, for example, temperatures as we get into Saturday between 96 and 98 degrees, and then you add in a dew point of around 72 or relative humidity, say up in the 50% range, we're going to see the heat index in this general range right in through here, about 100 to about 104. And when it really gets bad, when you see these air temperatures around 96 or 98 and the humidity is higher, and you start getting numbers where the heat index gets up above 110, that's when we see excessive heat warning. So there's a chart for this. It's kind of like wind chill. It combines the humidity with the temperature, tells you how hot it actually feels. And the reason why it feels hotter when it's more humid is that your body, you sweat to cool off. And so it's not just the sweat that cools you off, it's really the evaporation of the sweat. It's kind of like how a condensation unit works on an air conditioner or on a refrigerator. Well, the sweat can't evaporate when it's humid. So you just sweat and sweat and sweat and you don't cool off, and so you feel terrible. And how do you prepare for that? Well, heat preps. All right, let's talk about it. So you can have the potential for a heat illness like heat stroke or heat exhaustion. You got to limit your outdoor activities, and it can be dangerous to folks that are older, also young kids, and you got to drink a lot of water. And that one of the things I like to do personally is to drink a lot of water before I go out and mow the grass or work hard outside or even exercise. So, you can avoid the outdoor activities, especially during the hot part of the day, but some of us can't do that. Some of us have jobs where you actually have to work outside, or you have things you need to do. And so the key is just to get hydrated and stay hydrated. Keep replenishing water. It also affects you when you're fishing in the Gulf too. And of course, check on the relatives and your pets too. Dogs need extra extra water, that kind of thing as well. So heat exhaustion and heat stroke, how do you know you're going to see that? Well, if you're feeling faint or dizzy, that may be the beginnings of heat exhaustion. If you start to get a headache, that's heat stroke. And so when you're in the heat exhaustion phase, you're still trying to cool off, you're sweating a lot. When you get into heat stroke, that means you're past the point of no return and you're not sweating at all. Yeah, when you start to feel that your skin get clammy and pale, that's a sign that you're getting close to a heat stroke and you're in that heat exhaustion. But if your skin starts turning red and dry and you start throwing up, that kind of thing, you need to be concerned about heat stroke. And you can tell that your pulse will start to lower a little when you get into heat exhaustion, and then you can see a real rapid, strong pulse as well, and that means that you just really feel that pulse in your wrist, and you can even pass out if you have heat stroke. Another thing I've experienced with heat exhaustion is the muscle cramps, and that's something that will come in too. So definitely want to pay attention to that. I think a lot of us have experienced some degree of this, but that is the precursor to heat stroke. You need to call 911 if you are experiencing heat stroke. If you're experiencing heat exhaustion, just take a break. Go to an inside place or in a place with a fan, somewhere with some shade. Drink a lot of water, and you can even take a cool shower. Who needs a hot shower this time of the year? So heat alerts, these are issued, and we see a heat advisory issued when the heat index values are expected to be between 105 and 109 locally. When we expect an even more significant number, an excessive heat warning is issued, and that's for heat index values over 110. What we're thinking for the weekend is a heat index a little over 100, so not expecting to get into the heat advisory criteria or the excessive heat warning criteria, but those days are in front of us, and we see those days every summer across the Gulf Coast. Thanks for joining us here for Next Weather. Here's your 7-day forecast, and you can make your plans on some hot weather and some stormy weather by early next week.